This is video number 1 from my Nutrition 300 classes on dietary proteins. So for this chapter, the key takeaways I think for this chapter really should be that, as adults and I know I have high school students that take my classes, but generally most of my students are 18 and older. And even if you are around 18 or a little bit younger, you probably have likely stopped growing. I know some people continue to grow into their early 20s and they add height and muscle and weight. I get that, but most folks have stopped growing. And for the vast majority of people on Earth, dietary proteins are not a nutrient that you need to grow. They're a nutrient that you need to maintain. Infants and toddlers and teens and bodybuilders and elite athletes going through growth phases, absolutely, they need more protein to support that growth phase. But even elite bodybuilders are eating a lot of dietary protein to maintain the body that they have. Not add more, just keep what they have. And we live in a very much an animal society. America is an animal-based country. We still put vitamin D in cow's milk because we believe that all the folks in the northern climes need a good source of vitamin D during the wintertime, when in fact the demographics of America do not support that use, that mode of adding vitamin D. It doesn't make sense. Many people cannot consume cow's milk as an adult, and they don't. Doesn't make any sense. Thomas Jefferson was a complicated president, we'll put it at that. But the one thing I did like that he is quoted as saying, that if you looked at his plate, he never put meat in the middle of his plate. He used meat as a supplement to the diet, which was mostly like foods and grains. That's probably the way we should eat. Many of us eat no meat. Some of us eat lots of meat. We probably all should be eating less meat. Now, what do you use proteins for? Absolutely, I think to build the body, maintain your muscles, maintain your physical structure. But they have so many other uses. Every enzyme in the body is a protein. DNA mostly is just a set of instructions for making proteins. We call them enzymes. And then the enzymes build the body. So without question, you need protein for enzymes. Many hormones are proteins. Estrogen and testosterone are made from cholesterol. They're fat-based hormones. But insulin and glucagon and epinephrine and growth hormone releasing hormone and acetylcholines, those are all protein-based hormones. Fluid balance, acid-base balance, there's a lot of proteins and amino acids, the building blocks of protein, in the blood, and they maintain like a soup of your blood. So it's hard to pull water out of the blood. It's hard to put water into the blood. It's buffered, if you will. It's hard to change the pH, acid or base of the blood, because there's so many different kinds of proteins, basic and acidic and small and big. They buffer the body from immediate change. Transporting things around the body uses proteins. Getting things in and out of cell, like glucose into a muscle cell, that requires a transporter, which is triggered by insulin. That is a protein-based transporter. Immunity, all of your antibodies that your body makes to identify about 5 billion different foreign configurations of molecules are protein-based. Energy, if you have to burn it, you will. You shouldn't, but you will. You don't ever want to burn the 2x4s that keep your house up in the wintertime, but you will if you have to. And finally, satiety and appetite control. Satiety means to become full. It's not the same as staying full. Actually, to be clear, satiety actually means to stay full. Satiation means to become full. And these notes are on my side are technically wrong. That really should be satiation, to become full. Nothing really does fill you up like dietary protein. So if you look at sources, generally fruits and vegetables are not a good source. Of course, there's some in fruits and vegetables, but they're not a very good source. Animals are a great source. Nuts and seeds and beans and whole grains are the best sources. And even for those of us who eat animal tissue, we may be getting most of our dietary protein from plant sources. When we cover iron, I know most people think that animal is the best source of the mineral iron, and it is a great source. But the overwhelming amount of iron in any human's body comes from plant, and it's the same way for dietary protein. Now, we learned about carbohydrates. The big ones were starch, made up of the little baby monosaccharides, mostly glucose. In fat, it was a triglyceride made up of a glycerol and three little babies, fatty acids. Proteins are giant molecules made up of amino acids. We asked you to learn really three sugars: glucose, fructose, galactose, because those get absorbed. When it came to dietary fats, know the saturated, understand omega-3, understand omega-6. Basically, you need the omega-3s and the omega-6s, and you shouldn't be eating the saturated. That was it. Amino acids are different. There's not one, there's not two, there's not three, there's 20 of them. And of the 20, some you have to eat and some you don't. And we'll learn about that. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say about proteins in this video. Proteins have unique shapes. Because we can make an infinite number of proteins, we can make proteins pretty much with an infinite type of shapes or kind of shapes. If you mess up the shape, you destroy the protein. When we eat chicken protein, it has a shape. When we expose it to acid, we denature. It's still a strand of building blocks, those amino acids, but it's not chicken protein. Having a bunch of Legos in a bucket is not having the Death Star Lego set or the Millennium Falcon Lego set. You have to not just have them in a strand, they have to be folded in the shape. And here's collagen. Here is, let's see, here's DNA. Here's our hemoglobin. Is insulin here? Here's insulin. Here's insulin. Here's the one that breaks down alcohol dehydrogenase. Look at all the shapes. Remember in the colon, the job of the colon is to pull water back from what would become our feces so we can get some fluid back from our GI tract. One of those molecules that does that is aquaporin. Here's the porin molecule. Unique shapes. Proteins are all about shapes.